What happens when a kind, elderly man brings homemade cookies to his daughter's house, and she won't even open the door? What he does next gives a voice to thousands who've been silently fading into the background. You know, people say loneliness creeps in slowly, like fog on a cold morning. But for me, it slammed down like a damn garage door. Loud, sudden, and final. One day I was Dad, Grandpa, the rock of the family, and the next, I was just a guy people forgot to call back. It started on a Tuesday. Ordinary Tuesday, which already says a lot. At 73, every day has the same rhythm. Wake up to the creaking of my knees, drink lukewarm coffee that tastes like regret, and check my phone out of sheer habit. No missed calls, no texts, just a bunch of spam about car warranties and cemetery discounts. How charming. That morning, I did something I hadn't done in a while. I baked cookies. Chocolate chip. My late wife, Lorraine, used to say mine were better than store-bought. She lied. They were hard enough to chip a tooth, but she said it anyway, and I appreciated that kind of loyalty. I wanted to surprise my daughter, Melissa, and her kids. I figured I'd drop by, give the kids a treat, maybe stay for lunch. I even shaved. Put on my blue cardigan, the one with elbow patches that make me look like a retired professor instead of a retired warehouse foreman. I stood on their porch, cookies in hand, heart full of hope. I rang the bell. Silence. I rang again. Finally, the door opened a crack. Melissa peeked through like I was selling encyclopedias. She looked annoyed. "Dad, you didn't call first." "I figured I'd surprise you," I said with a half smile. "I brought cookies." She didn't open the door wider. "We're kind of busy." Busy. That word again. The universal code for, "we don't want you here." I heard a kid's voice inside. My grandson, Aiden, I think. But he wasn't told to come say hi. No, Grandpa's here. No smile, no hug, just nothing. "I'll just leave them here then," I said, placing the container gently on the step. She nodded. "Okay, thanks." Door shut. Click. And that, my friend, is how you become a ghost. Not with chains and moans, but with a plastic container of cookies left on a doorstep like forgotten Tupperware. Later that day, I went home and tried to shake it off. Told myself she was stressed, the kids were wild. Maybe she didn't hear me right. But my voicemail box is still empty, and that's louder than any door slam. So I did what any semi-retired, semi-forgotten man does. I went to the community center for senior chess night. It's mostly widowers trying to remember openings they learned in '72 and pretending arthritis doesn't affect their rook. There's Bill, who tells the same story about Korea every time he loses a game. Harold, who smells like peppermint and suspicion. And Carol, the only woman in the group, who still wears lipstick and calls everyone sweetheart. I beat her in 2 moves and felt like a jerk. But she smiled anyway and told me I played like a tiger. A tiger with a bad hip, maybe. After the game, I sat in my car longer than I should have. Watched the parking lot empty. Thought about Lorraine. She would have said, "Go back and knock again. Make them see you." But here's the thing nobody tells you. As you age, you start asking for less. Not because you want less, but because you get tired of being the only one asking. The loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about being erased. The first time they ask you to move to the guest room so the kids can sleep better, you smile and say, "Of course." The first time your opinion gets laughed off as old-fashioned, you chuckle like it's funny. The first time you're not invited to a holiday dinner because it's too loud for you anyway, you nod like that makes perfect sense. You shrink. You vanish. Not all at once, but in polite little slices. I used to think my life was measured in big moments. My wedding day, my first promotion, the birth of my kids. But now, it's measured in silences, in phone calls that never come, in empty chairs, in cookie containers left on porches. And you know what really twists the knife? They think they're being kind. They think giving me space is some noble act, like I'm a fragile antique vase that might crack if hugged too tightly. I want to scream, I don't need space. I need connection. I need to be seen. I need someone to look me in the eyes and say, we miss you. We need you. We remember who you are. But that's not how it works, is it? Instead, I get text messages on my birthday that say love ya without punctuation. No call, no card, just a cold bubble on a screen that feels more like obligation than love. By the end of that week, I made a list, a real one, with a pen and paper. 7 things that make older men lonely, but no one admits. I don't know why I did it. Maybe to prove I wasn't crazy. Maybe because lists are easier to manage than emotions. Or maybe because I needed to see it all in writing. But I made it. And it made me realize this isn't just my story. It's ours. And if no one else is going to say it out loud, I will. What happened next changed everything. You won't want to miss how this story unfolds, especially when silence turns into something much louder. Let me tell you something about birthdays. At a certain age, they stop being celebrations and start feeling like annual reminders that you're still here and nobody noticed. Mine rolled around on a Sunday this year. You'd think that would make it easier for people to show up. No work, no school, no excuse. Right? Wrong. I didn't expect a parade. I didn't expect balloons or a marching band. But I figured I'd get a call. Maybe 2. Maybe someone would swing by. After all, 74 isn't nothing. It's a whole lot of mornings survived, a lot of pills swallowed, and more disappointments endured than anyone should keep quiet about. So when I woke up that morning, I put on my birthday shirt. That's what Lorraine used to call it. It was this faded navy button-up with tiny white sailboats. I wore it every year. She said it made me look chipper, whatever the hell that means. I brewed my coffee, extra strong, because at my age, caffeine is the last legal drug that still works. I turned on the radio. They were playing some Sinatra, which felt like a wink from the universe. I checked my phone. Nothing. Just a push notification from the pharmacy reminding me it's time to refill my cholesterol meds. Wow. What a celebration. But I told myself, be patient. It's early. People sleep in. Or maybe they're planning something. Maybe they're on their way. And here's where things got interesting. Around 11, I got a call. Not from Melissa. Not from my son, Jacob. Not even from my neighbor Carol, who never misses a chance to bring banana bread and ask if I've finally bought those hearing aids. Nope. It was Tina from the HOA. She wanted to remind me, again, that my recycling bin had been out for 2 extra days last week. Said it disrupts neighborhood aesthetic. I laughed out loud, not because it was funny, but because the irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Here I was, sitting in my living room, phone colder than my coffee, waiting for my children to remember the man who literally gave them life. And the only one who remembered me was a woman obsessed with garbage bins. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I walked to the store. Why? Because if no one was going to celebrate me, I damn well was. I bought myself a small chocolate cake. Not the sugar-free kind either. The real stuff. I grabbed a single candle. And a bottle of ginger ale. Because even rebellion has its limits when your stomach lining is older than your car. I walked back with my paper bag of dignity, head held high, and passed a young couple on the sidewalk. The guy looked up and said, "Hey, happy birthday, man." I blinked. "How'd you know?" He pointed at the candle sticking out of my grocery bag. "Lucky guess?" I laughed again. For real this time. Maybe the world wasn't completely gone. Back home, I lit the candle, closed my eyes, and made a wish. I won't tell you what it was. Not because I'm superstitious, but because even I knew it sounded pathetic. But it had something to do with voices, with warmth, with not being so damn invisible. Then, halfway through my slice of cake, the doorbell rang. I nearly dropped the fork. Could it be? Was this the moment I'd finally misjudged them? Maybe they were all outside with a card and a crooked smile and some poorly wrapped mug that says, "World's Okayest Dad." I opened the door. It was a delivery guy. He handed me a bag of takeout. "Order for Mike?" I looked at him. "I'm not Mike." He looked at the receipt. "Oops, wrong house. Sorry, man." He turned to leave. And I just stood there, holding the door open, watching him walk away, watching that bag of food meant for someone else, watching my hopes shrink into something too small to see. Later that day, my son finally called. At 9:42 p.m. "Hey, Dad. Sorry I missed your birthday today. It's been crazy. The twins had soccer, and then I cut him off. "It's fine." That was it. Just 2 words. Not because I forgave him, not because it really was fine, but because I was too tired to carry the weight of disappointment into another conversation. My bones hurt. My heart hurt. My pride hurt worst of all. And here's the kicker. He didn't even notice. Just thanked me for being understanding and hung up with, "Love you, Pops." I stared at the phone like it had just insulted me. That night, I took out my list again. The one I started after the cookie incident. 7 things that make older men lonely, but no one admits. And I added number 3. 3. You become understanding. Code for you don't matter enough to include. I underlined it twice. I also noticed something strange that day. My neighbor Carol's car hadn't moved since last week. Normally, she's out by noon every day. Groceries, hair appointments, bingo. But the blinds were shut. The porch light was off. And I got this feeling. The kind you don't like to talk about. The kind that tells you something's off. So I walked over. Knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. I called her name. Nothing. I looked around. No mail picked up. Newspapers stacked. Something was wrong. So I did what you do when you realize that loneliness isn't just painful. It's dangerous. I called the cops. They came, broke the door, found her on the floor, dehydrated, disoriented, alive, thank God. But barely. They said she'd been like that for at least 2 days, and no one noticed. No one but me. That night, I sat in my recliner, alone again, and wrote 4. Everyone thinks someone else is checking on you. Until no one is. I looked at that line for a long time, and I wondered, how many other Carols are out there? How many other birthdays have passed in silence? How many other fathers are sitting in dark living rooms, waiting for a call that never comes? How many of us have been replaced by group chats and passive texts? How many men shrink into polite ghosts, grateful for crumbs of attention while quietly starving? This is the turning point. What comes next flips everything upside down. Stay with me. You're about to see what happens when a quiet man decides he's done being silent. You know that feeling when something shifts inside you? Not all at once. Not like a lightning bolt. More like a slow building pressure. Until one day, The dam just gives out, and everything inside comes pouring out whether you're ready or not. That day came for me on a Thursday. The kind of gray, windless day where time feels slower and everything smells like yesterday's leftovers. I'd just gotten back from the doctor's. Nothing serious, just the usual checkup where they measure you, weigh you, and pretend your blood pressure is concerning, like it's a revelation. What was new? They flagged possible cognitive decline. Can you believe that? I said, "Doc, if I forget my keys twice in a week, it's because the damn things walk on their own, not because I'm losing it." He didn't laugh, just typed something into the computer and handed me a pamphlet. Support Groups for Aging Adults. I read the title twice. Then I folded it up, walked out, and dropped it in the nearest trash can. That afternoon, I sat on the porch, watching the same cars go by, driven by people who wouldn't look twice at me unless I collapsed into the street. That's when my neighbor, remember Tina, the HOA queen, waddled over in her peach-colored tracksuit, holding a clipboard like she was about to condemn my soul. "Peter, we've noticed your hedge is growing uneven." I blinked. "You noticed my hedge?" She nodded like she'd cracked a cold case. "It's violating Section 3B of our landscaping guidelines." And right then, something inside me cracked. Not like a break. No. More like a door I'd been keeping shut suddenly burst open. "Do you realize," I said, standing up, "that I could drop dead in this rocking chair and the only thing you'd complain about is whether my shoes matched the mailbox?" Tina blinked. "Section 3B?" I scoffed. "Lady, I've got a broken water heater, a son who only calls after 9, and a back that sounds like microwave popcorn when I move too fast. You think I give a damn about a hedge?" She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance. "You want to trim it? Be my guest. Here's a pair of scissors. Knock yourself out." I handed her an actual pair of kitchen scissors from my side table. She just stared at them like I'd handed her a live snake. She turned and left without a word. I stood there, heart racing, hands trembling, not from age, but from the adrenaline of saying what I'd swallowed for years. I wasn't just tired. I was done. That night, I looked at my list again. You remember that list? The one that started with cookies on the porch? It had grown. 7 lines, all painfully honest. I stared at them for a while, then added a heading in big capital letters. The Invisible Rule Book for Older Men. And number 5? 5. Speak up, and you're grumpy. Stay silent, and you're forgotten. Lorraine would have liked that one. She used to say my silence was louder than most people's shouting. That list. It stopped being just a list. It was turning into a statement, a message, a reckoning. That weekend, something happened that blew everything wide open. I was invited, brace yourself, to a barbecue. Not by family, not by Melissa, not by Jacob, by Carol. Yep, good old Carol. After the fall, she bounced back quicker than a rubber ball. Said her nephew helped her set up one of those medical alert necklaces, and now she's bionic. She even got a perm. "Come by Saturday," she said. "Just a few of us old-timers. No drama, no politics, just ribs and honesty." Now that I could stomach. The barbecue started sweet. A few folding chairs. A grill that smelled like charcoal and defiance. 3 men and 2 women. One brought potato salad that tasted like sour defeat. Carol had lawn flamingos in her yard, and one of them wore a party hat. But as we ate, the conversation shifted. Walt, a former accountant with eyes like tired marbles, leaned in and said, "You ever feel like you raised everyone, and now you're just extra?" Heads nodded. Glasses clinked. I gave my daughter a down payment on her house, said George. She hasn't invited me over once. She called me out of touch, said Janet, for asking about her divorce. They all looked at me. I didn't blink. I brought cookies to my daughter's house, I said slowly, and she wouldn't open the door. Silence. Then Carol, bless her wrinkled, unfiltered soul, leaned in and said, "What if we stopped waiting for them?" I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She grinned. "What if we stopped asking to be included and made something they couldn't ignore?" It was ridiculous, but it lit a fuse. We talked for hours. Ideas, frustrations, stories, laughter that sounded like healing. By the end of the night, we'd made a decision. A real one. We weren't going to sit in our separate little silos anymore, waiting for kids who were too busy and grandkids who saw us as weird furniture. We were going to do something. Something big. Something visible. Something that reminded the world. We're still here. We have voices. We matter. I went home that night with a strange sensation in my chest. Not anger, not sorrow. Purpose. The next morning, I woke up and stared at my list. 7 things. But I was ready to break every single one of them. You've seen how far the silence pushed me. But in the final chapter, everything shifts. Don't miss how we took the pain, the neglect, and the quiet, and turned it into something unforgettable. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but they forget. Sometimes, old dogs were just never asked to show their teeth. The Monday after the barbecue, we met again. Same backyard, same folding chairs. But this time, we weren't just swapping stories like sad sacks with coffee breath. We had a plan. We were going to tell the truth. Publicly, loudly, and with more wrinkles and sass than daytime television could handle. Carol's nephew, Robbie, a 30-something hipster who runs a local podcast and drinks iced coffee out of mason jars, offered to help us record something. "Something like what?" I asked, skeptically. "A round table," he said. "You tell your stories. We film it. I'll post it." I narrowed my eyes. "And people are actually gonna watch that?" He grinned. "You'd be surprised what people stop scrolling for when it feels real." So we did it. We gathered in Carol's living room, turned off the ceiling fan so it wouldn't mess up the audio, and sat around a big oak table like we were about to vote on ending world hunger. Robbie set up 2 cameras, passed out mics clipped to our collars, and said, "Be honest. Be yourselves. Don't hold back." And so we didn't. George talked about how his grandkids only come around when they need rides or money. Janet cried, not wept, but cried, talking about how her daughter treats her like a babysitter instead of a person. Carol, with her raspy voice and perfect timing, said, "I have 4 children. 3 sent me flowers for Mother's Day. The one I raised the longest didn't even text." I talked about the cookies, about the birthday, about the silence. And then I read my list. All 7 things. And when I finished, I said, "We're not lonely because we're old. We're lonely because we became too easy to ignore." Robbie nodded silently. "That's your title." I said, "What?" He pointed to the screen. "That's your message." He posted the video on a Tuesday. By Thursday, it had 80,000 views. By Friday, 500,000. It started with comments like, "This reminds me of my dad. I haven't called him in weeks. I never realized how much I've taken my parents for granted. Why is this making me cry at my desk?" Then came the media. Local news ran a piece. Seniors speak out. Loneliness and neglect, in their own words. Then came national coverage. Emails, phone calls, letters. People started visiting their parents, bringing coffee, apologizing. We got invited to do a town hall, a podcast, a sit-down with a city official who wanted to create a support network for isolated seniors. And here's the wild part. I didn't feel like a ghost anymore. But you want to know the moment that really undid me? It wasn't the views. It wasn't the praise. It was a knock on my door. I opened it, expecting another HOA notice or maybe one of Carol's casserole drop-offs. But it was Melissa, holding the same plastic cookie container I'd left on her porch 2 months ago. "I kept it," she said, eyes wet. "I don't know why, I saw the video, Dad." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. She stepped inside, hugged me tight. Smelled like lavender and guilt. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I've been awful. I didn't realize." I pulled back and looked at her. Not mad, not bitter, just older. "You didn't want to see," I said. "No one does." She nodded. "But I do now. And I want the kids to see it too." She asked if she could show them the video, if I'd come over and talk to them, tell them what it feels like to be forgotten. I said yes, not because I needed redemption, but because they needed understanding. That night, I updated the list. I crossed out the title. 7 Things That Make Older Men Lonely, But No One Admits It. And I wrote a new one. 7 Things We Should Start Talking About. Before it's too late, I added an 8th. 8. You're never too old to remind people you still matter. In the weeks that followed, we kept going. Carol launched a newsletter, Silver Voices. George started a support group. Janet joined TikTok. Yes, TikTok, and she has 40,000 followers who call her Nana J. I wrote a guest column in the local paper, and guess what? We're not just a group anymore. We're a movement. We're loud. We're honest. And we're not fading quietly. We're living proof that you can be 70, 80, even 90, and still raise hell in the name of connection, truth, and dignity. I don't need every phone call. I don't need every visit. But I need to know I'm seen. And now, I am. The end.